everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Your Business Incorporated. I am Bosin Amafaye. We're live to you from Channel's global headquarters, Lagos, Nigeria, the country's financial capital. Welcome to the show. Let's spend the next 30 minutes together. Asian stocks rebound after China suspends its market circuit breaker system and set a firmer midpoint rate for the currency, trading for the first time in 9 days in 2016. And global oil price moves away from 12-year lows as China shares rebound. Plus, Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission sets February the 3rd to hear new complaints against two subsidiaries of the troubled investment and trading group BGL PLC. Now, let's start from there. The Securities and Exchange Commission on Thursday says February the 3rd is the date set for its Administrative Proceedings Committee to hear a set of 10 new complaints against two subsidiaries of the troubled investment and trading group BGL PLC. The Securities Commission on Thursday issued a notice inviting BGL Securities, BGL Asset Management, and their sponsored individuals to appear before the APC on petitions the Commission says it received from various investors for monies totaling over 2.9 billion naira. The invited market firms and individuals were asked to file their defense against allegations of several violations of the Investment and Securities Act of 2007 that includes promotion and marketing of products not registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission, failure to file statutory returns, and furnishing the SEC with false and misleading information. The BGL Group is already facing regulatory investigations and litigations over investors' funds worth some 14 billion naira. Now the markets around the world are heaving a sigh of relief. We've seen about $4 trillion wiped off global markets since the start of the week. It was a perfect storm, but things are now getting a little bit calm across all markets. So let's get a sense of today's market position as we look at the U.S. at about an hour from now to release its first payroll data for the year 2016. What does it tell us about the state of the world economy? Now let's get across to DWTV financial correspondent for Channels Television at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange in Germany. Conrad Bossen is joining me live on the program now to chat to a few of the stories we're following at this time. Conrad, a good afternoon to you. Let's get started. Is the storm over at the equities marketplace as major indexes start turning positive? Are you watching the U.S. payroll data out there at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange today?
You know, Bosun, the storm might have quieted down a little. The concerns have not really gone away from the market, at least not here in Frankfurt. Look at this. The German DAX, a little bit of a recovery this morning, but then this recovery has really halted quite quickly, and now at the moment the DAX is only trading on the unchanged line compared to last night. And if we compare it to the end of last week or the end of last year, the DAX is down 7%. The concerns remain. Of course, it's good news today that the Chinese government for the first time, or the Chinese central bank for the first time, fixed the yuan exchange rate higher and not lower as it did all week. But apart from this, the news coming in from China, they're not really causing a lot of trust and confidence on the market. This nervous-making circuit breaker rule has been scrapped. Yes, that's good news, but another rule has been introduced. Major stakeholders of companies and top executives in China are not allowed to sell more than 1% of the total amount of the shares of a company within 3 months. That's effectively another ban on large share sales. So obviously the authorities in China think that it's still necessary to intervene heavily on this market. That's not really sending a signal of trust, and it makes people here concerned whether or not the authorities in China really have the situation under control. Now, speaking about these labor market numbers you mentioned, which are going to be published in about an hour's time, from the United States. This data is playing an even more important role than usual, given the events in China this week, because people here are asking whether or not the ability of the Federal Reserve to further increase interest rates might have been affected or not. Some people here even predict that the Fed might soon be inclined to lower interest rates because of the weakness of the global economy, especially China and the emerging economies. What's expected in the US is that the unemployment rate probably has remained at 5%. Some optimistic economists predict a decline of down to 4.9% in the US. And in terms of new jobs created in December, 200,000 is the number that most people believe will be published.
Conrad, let's stick with Germany. Let's talk about Europe industrial production data. News out today that European demand for auto makers, the brands such as Audi and Mercedes, is a strong indication. So what a surprise decline in Germany's industrial output today, down about 0.36%. Was this just a blip on the radar, or something like the beginning of a storm? Is Germany weakening? Is Germany trending lower?
Well, this decline of industrial production, which was reported about the month of November, clearly shows how quickly the manufacturing sector here in Germany reacted to the fears of weakness, Chinese weakness and emerging markets weakness that had come up in the course of last autumn. It was a negative surprise. Most economists had forecast a further increase of industrial production, and what this shows is that quite obviously here in Germany the same thing is happening as in the United States and in China. We're seeing a shift from manufacturing towards services, and of course now this data from this negative data from the manufacturing sector is fueling a few concerns whether or not the hard data coming in soon during the next few weeks and months will not live up to the high expectations fueled by positive sentiment indexes coming in. On the other hand, it's very well possible that the strong performance of the services sector, of domestic demand here, of private consumption in Germany, will continuously be able to make up for the relative weakness of manufacturing. We've seen it in the IFO Business Climate Index coming in until the end of last year. All the businesses related to services, wholesale, retail, also construction here in Germany, all these were quite strong. So it's too early to be really concerned about Germany at the moment.
Okay, so we're going to take off the question mark there if Germany is slowing down. But of course, the Volkswagen's top executives are in the US to talk to the authorities over there. What are you hearing there in Germany about? They've arrived in the US. What are they going to tell the regulators? There's been an apology from Volkswagen saying, we're sorry we deceived you with the diesel emission test. What was the latest on that?
Well, for several weeks now, employees of Volkswagen in the United States have been negotiating with the authorities in the US about how damages will be paid to customers in the US and also, of course, to the government in the US whose laws and regulations were infringed on. So far, these negotiations in the US were not very successful, at least as far as I can tell from where I stand, speaking here with analysts and also reading the media. This will probably change next week because the Detroit Auto Show, the motor show in Detroit, will start, and some of the most important executives, including the CEO of Volkswagen, Matthias Müller, have booked flights to go to Detroit. They will go on a large stage show of excuses there. And Müller is also scheduled to travel to Washington, where he will meet the administrator or head of the Environmental Protection Agency. That's the agency that sort of came out with the scandalous news last autumn. Anything but confidential and hopeful statements there, pointing towards a solution. How all this will be settled in the US would be a major disappointment for the markets and also, I guess, for customers of Volkswagen. So I guess that Matthias Müller, the CEO of Volkswagen, is working hard at the moment to get prepared for these meetings in the US next week.
Okay, whatever they discuss behind closed doors, they'll start filtering out from the weekend till Monday. So let's get back together sometime on Monday or sometime next week if you're on the call. Thanks for being in the loop today. Conrad Bosson, DWTV financial correspondent for Channels Television. When we come back after the break, if you've lost any money at the stock market globally this week, blame it on the dragon. That's China. We'll talk more about that after the break.